Today on Ask the Oracle with Suzy Cherub, we're weaving light and shadow into healing with Cath Leask. Discover the transformative power of embracing your true self. Cath is the owner and creator of the Loving Lotus, president of the Spirituality Collective of Canberra, inspirer and motivator. Join us on Ask the Oracle podcast with Suzy Cherub as we dive deep into the transformative journey of Cath. Cath, a seasoned psychic, medium, shamanic healer, deathwalker, and intuitive mentor, shares her profound insights on navigating from grief to joy. With a rich tapestry of experiences, Cath discusses the power of creating safe spaces, the importance of mental health, and the mind-body-soul connection. In this episode, we will dive deep, exploring Cath's journey from a volatile childhood to discovering her Wiradjuri roots. Cath's story is one of resilience and transformation. Understand the healing process. So learn from Cath as she uses her lived experiences to help others heal and find their path. Discover the power of sharing. Cath believes in the strength of sharing skills, experiences, and knowledge to build confidence and connection with others. Cath will also touch on her work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, her extensive government career, and her unique hobbies, including being a pistol shooting champion. So tune in for an episode filled with heartfelt stories, wisdom, and inspiration. Hi, Cath. How are you, my love?
Hi, Suzy. Thank you so much for such I feel so honored and privileged. And hearing you say that, I'm like, oh my God, I can't promise I won't cry.
Everything's welcome. Tears, laughter. I'm sure we're going to have some beautiful spiritual banter today. And
We will.
I can't wait to dive deep with you, my love. So here we go. So, Cath, can you share with us your journey from a volatile childhood to discovering your Wiradjuri roots? How has this shaped your path as a healer, my love? I'd love to know.
Now, I can't promise that I'll stay on track, spicy brain, but yeah, look, we don't often talk about Kat's childhood. It was pretty hectic. My dad was an alcoholic, and it was fairly volatile. My brother is high on the autism scale. In the old language, they called it Asperger's. So there was a fair bit of there was a lot of aggression, violence in my home. Primary school was awful. I was bullied pretty badly. I was a very lonely, very lonely child. So I didn't have safe spaces. My parents divorced. Oh gosh, I can't even tell you when. And both parents remarried. The woman my father married, it wasn't a nice place to be. Her daughter, the things that she would say to me, don't bear repeating. My stepfather, he was a bit of an old school, children should be seen and not heard, and I didn't even exist. We ended up moving to Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea in 1985. So that, wow. People say to me, oh gosh, that must have been different. But because it was my childhood, I've got no other frame of reference with it. That move very much distanced me from my father and my brother.
Right.
And it was beautiful in the sense that I found solace in friendships. We were all orphans in Port Moresby High School. The friends that I made there, 40 years on, we are still friends, and we always gather.
How wonderful.
Come together. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm really blessed in the sense that the diversity that we had at that school, I think at the time, was 40 different nationalities. Every year we had United Nations Day where we all dressed up. So we were exposed to Māori, to all the different tribes around Papua New Guinea, Filipino culture, Fijian. It was just spectacular. And something that wasn't lost on us at such an early age was the impact of colonization, particularly on Papua New Guinea, because there was the inequity between, if you were an expatriate, the pay scale was very different to a Papua New Guinean doing the same job. So we saw that very early. I don't think we realized, but we kind of understood. It was so within us.
Mm.
Moving back to Australia was really quite difficult. It was a culture shock for me.
Yes, yeah, it
Such a
would have
different
been.
space. And my stepfather ended up going back to PNG, and Mum and I went to Cairns. And of course, Cairns is this incredibly diverse with the Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guinean
It's so
people.
vibrant and cultural. And you've
Yeah,
got that tropical weather too, which brings everyone out, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
The Aboriginal, it's a mecca for Aboriginal people from across Cape York and North Queensland,
yes,
massive Torres Strait Islander community. And it wasn't long before I ended up in a relationship with a Torres Strait Islander man. He was from his family from Saibai Island, which is actually 4 kilometers off the Papua New Guinean coast. Uh, it wasn't a great relationship, incredibly violent. But when you look and think about what my normal was as a child, I went from aggressive, abusive, absent, emotionally absent men to exactly that in an adult relationship. The beauty in that relationship was the deep kinship connections that I have to this day with that family. His mother teaching me how to speak Kalalagia, which is the Torres Strait language of the Central Torres Strait Islands. And I, I carry that with me to this day, in the sense that that sense of culture coming from
yes,
PhD into it felt quite normal. It was, I left him with 2 little boys, and that was hard. I left with fear for our lives. I'm not going to go into it here, but he did
yes,
nearly kill me, and having to leave and rebuild, and back then it was very. I've got to support my 2 children, and
yes.
on we go. And my dream in high school was to join the Air Force, which didn't come about, but my next dream was to join customs. So I became a customs officer, and I loved it, loved
Yeah,
it. And the structure, justice, balance, it was what this little Libra moon Pisces heart needed.
yeah,
Um, the control in the chaos. And
yes.
look, I
Feeling
ended up,
safe in that kind of that container, that
yeah,
environment with all
yeah,
that structure and
absolutely.
not rules, but yeah, yeah.
E- Yeah, rules,
Rules.
absolutely.
Lots of rules.
Um, I met my, I'll call him my second husband. I didn't marry the first one.
Yeah.
Still damaged from that one. Look, the second one was not much better. He wasn't violent to me, but he was to my children. It was all very covert. I missed the signs. I carry a lot of guilt and shame over the damage he did to my boys. I had another child with him, and the relationship, all of that was exposed. And we had moved to Canberra, all of that stuff. And sorry, it's one of those things that I start to go, oh, I don't want to talk about this,
Yeah.
but
Do you know what? I really appreciate your real rawness, your vulnerability.
oh,
It's inspiring. What
we,
a
we we have to
yeah.
share. We have to share our stories, and
Yes.
look, and it's funny who we meet on our journey that can relate when we do share. And
Oh,
that man,
I'm really relating to a lot of it. Yeah.
yeah, that man took my boy, my third son Nate, took him at 10 years of age, and look, poisoned the well, and did a lot of damage. A lot of people in Nate's ear. Good news story, I got Nate back at 15, and we had a lot. I'll never get that 5 years back, but we had a lot of healing to do in that. But along that journey of violence, and look, don't leave me unsupervised to make decisions around life partners, because I'm going to be abusers and addicts. And all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
In all of that, I did find solace in work and making a difference in that, protecting the borders. Sometimes I joke, I don't know who we were protecting the borders from, ourselves maybe, but I was the first female firearms instructor
Oh,
in.
that makes so much sense to me, because I've always kind of seen you as this beautiful warrior, woman, this amazing light in the dark. It's just so beautiful. It
Yeah.
makes so much sense to me that you did that. Yeah.
It was hard work. Like I
Yeah.
pioneered the way, and I faced a lot of that, the misogyny. I hate to bring in the M word, but I did. And
Yeah.
what could a chick
Well,
tell
that's
me
the
about
reality.
guns?
Yeah.
Sit down and shut up, sunshine, because you're about to be schooled. And I did it well. Like I was I was the Rain Man of firearms. I could look at a gun, tell you the make and model, pull it apart, put it back together, safety test it, put some ammo in it, shoot it, win a medal. um, but I guess that sort of sums me up, because I've always been driven to support, to inspire, to empower other people. And whether that's through capability development on a professional level, or helping them overcome those personal challenges, to get to achieving their dreams. And I do find joy in helping others, like seeing them light up. And in all of the adversity I know I've faced, I never lost hope. And that's the thing, isn't it? That hope. It's what
Yeah.
keeps us going. And in all of that, those Wiradjuri roots, that kind of blew me away. I've always had this ridiculous connection, and I touch on that because I know I've got some notes there a little bit further on.
Yeah.
But I had this photo of my dad's mum, my grandmother Eva, and there was something about her that you couldn't change my mind that she was Aboriginal. And you couldn't change my mind, particularly the photos of my dad. There was always this little thing in the back of my
Like
mind.
this knowing, this deep
Yeah,
knowing.
yeah. And my grandmother Eva died when dad was 12. There
Right.
were no, there were a couple of stories about a connection here and a connection there.
Yeah.
And about, oh, I don't know, 8 or 9 years here, we get to that point in our life and we want to know where we've come from, because that
Yes.
helps us get to where we're going. And
Yeah.
I discovered the journey of her mother and her grandparents. So my great grandmother and my great grandparents. And it kind of all started to make sense. And as someone who had spent time in communities in Cape York and had this connection with my ex, his family and his culture, but being the outsider looking in, but in my heart, I knew that in some way I was connected to this. And look, it blew my mind to find the connection to Wiradjuri and to a little place near Tumut, because they all lived across Gippsland. So from one end of the Snowy Mountains on Gurnai country to
Yeah.
Wiradjuri country, the other end of the Snowy Mountains. And to just so and then you can't, like a story of, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
I was in Ewan
It's
country not too long
fascinating.
ago, and
Yeah.
I met a brother and sister, and their dad came through. I was doing a mediumship demonstration, and their dad came through, and I reckon it was one of my best mediumship dems ever, if I do say so myself. And their dad came through. Afterwards, they stopped to talk to me. I just assumed Ewan country, Ewan mob. And I said, I really would like to get out to this little place near Tumut, Brungle, where the Aboriginal cemetery is.
Right. Yeah.
Knows where Brungle is, and they both look at each other. They both look at me and go, Brungle, that's where we're from. You
You
can't
can't
tell
make
me,
it up.
you can't tell me that their dad
No.
didn't.
That's synchronistic. That's
I got
connected.
goosebumps. Yeah. So
Yes. And even
oh
having that really deep mediumship connection as well.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, it was beautiful.
yeah.
And look, and I feel like so much of that, and I know we're going to unpack it, the shamanic stuff and
Yes.
my connection to country, and there's so
Yeah.
many touch points in there that just
Yeah.
like, how has it shaped my path as a
I was going to
healer?
ask you that. How has it shaped? I know that you do lots of amazing things, especially like for the community and within your, within your work. But in regards to your, your spiritual work, do you think that this incredibly amazing journey that you've been on of like extreme highs and extreme lows, do you feel like it's given you a deeper
Oh,
understanding, more compassion?
100%.
I came from a very similar childhood too, where, I think when you come from a volatile, family home, you're even good at, intuitively tapping in, because you have to kind of, you're more aware
Hypervigilance.
somehow. So how has it
Hypervigilance.
shaped your
Yeah.
path? Yeah.
Look, look, I think I don't ever want to tap into that toxic spirituality, that, oh,
Mm.
this is on your path and this is what had to happen. But
Yes.
I fully believe that I couldn't be the healer that I am today without having experienced what I have. And I everything I've been through in some way, shape, or form will come into the healing sessions or the readings. And every client I see, it never ceases to amaze me, the healing that comes back because of that. I don't know, the reciprocity or the I- I'm not just, it's not, how do I word this? When somebody is looking for their person to work with, healing, reading, or otherwise, you need to resonate with them. But I also need to resonate with my clients. It goes both ways. And
Yes.
every single person I see, there is something in their journey that is helping me heal on that subconscious level. So
Oh, I love that so
everything,
much, because it is an interactive, ebb and flow interaction. It's that co-creative, collaborative
oh,
connection.
absolutely.
I'm with you on that. Yeah,
It's like the
exactly.
people that come into your sessions and they go, "Well, you tell me, you tell me." It's like, babes, you gotta meet me at the campfire. You gotta meet me halfway,
Yeah,
because if you're gonna block yourself off, that's you, your energy. You're going, no, I don't consent to this. I'm not gonna be able to tap into anything. You've got to come here willingly to go, yep, I'm gonna confirm that for you, and then you're gonna get the most out of your session. So
I'm so glad you explained that.
yeah,
That's brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah,
Two-way
yeah.
street, baby. Two-way.
Two-way street. But even in the, like, the learning and the growth as well,
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I know that I'm still my path and my connection and that sense of honoring my ancestors' aboriginality. I'm still I'm still working that out and still
Yes.
making sure that, yeah,
And I
it's
know that you do that with such, um, you know, you do it carefully, you do it with integrity. I know you do. Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
mm,
So, my love, what were some really kind of pivotal moments in your life that led you to embrace your psychic, and shamanic abilities? So,
yeah,
I mean, we've been through quite a few of those, haven't we, with
yeah.
your childhood
Oh gosh.
and your connection to country and your connection to your mob. And there's just been so many beautiful, like, connections that are just woven through that tapestry of your life
Yeah.
so far.
Oh,
Has there been
absolutely.
any kind of real kind of, moments where you've gone, right, yeah, that's what I need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look, woman of my age, you kind of look back and you think those key moments where you trusted that intuition so deeply,
Yes,
always known stuff. And,
yes.
as a child, I had invisible friends. John and George would visit, and I was very protective of them. And I remember being at my other granny's one Easter, and I was about 4 or 5, and I wouldn't share Easter eggs until John and George had arrived. And it wasn't until many,
Yeah,
many, many years later that I realized, and it was funny, Suzy Engstrom. Do you remember Suzy Engstrom out at
I do.
Carabar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked out with her who John was, and there was somebody else that I won't name that we worked out who George was. John was my dad's oldest brother who passed away as an infant, and George was my granny's father. So spirit connection from a small child, but you kind of block it out. You kind of you stop it because you get told, oh, you know, invisible friends or
Yeah.
weirdo, and you go into protection measure. But all of those things that have happened, I knew, I got a sense of, uh, like just simple things like you know what song's going to come on the radio, or you know what's about to be said. To that,
Yeah.
so many synchronicities across my
Yes.
journey, just knowing. My intuition always steered me right, and I think it was around the late 90s. I had my first psychic reading at 18, funny enough, but the late 90s, I read the Celestine Prophecy, and it made so much sense.
Oh, I
Oh,
remember reading that.
yep.
That was
Oh,
actually a turning point for me too, because I
yep.
remember reading it and I just soaked it up and I just loved it.
It
And
made so much
it made
sense.
so much sense to me. Yeah, I remember that book. Yeah.
Rochelle Charman said the same thing, which blew my mind. And
Yeah.
and my little person's at the window waving. Um, it made so much sense in the also to as a younger person, I would Reiki myself. I didn't know what Reiki was, but when I was oh God, even going back before then, it just reminded me, memory unlocked. I think when I was about 11 or 12, a really close family friend up in Port Moresby taught me the whole concept of white lighting and meditation. So that grew into that when I was feeling scared, white lighting. When I had pain, allowing that light, it was a blue light, I think I would let in to come and take the pain away. And so reading the Celestine prophecy sort of started to put a lot of sense in that energetic sense.
Yes.
And there was this deep knowing on that shamanic level, and Peru, and what they were doing in terms of shamanic medicine, particularly the Incan lineage.
Yes.
I never, gosh,
I
I
love the Incan
kind of
lineage.
always
Yeah.
knew that, but to be part of that now and having done the shamanic practitioner work and the Incan, the Cuero medicine wheel, oh, it just blows my mind. I just, yeah, didn't realize it'd take me this long to get there. Um,
Everything's so in alignment, isn't it? Like
yeah, it happens
everything
when it's,
comes together, like joining the dots, and it's like, oh, okay, that
yeah,
happened and that
yeah,
happened. But it
yeah,
makes so much sense when when you're looking in on it. And
yeah.
the
Oh, for
purity
sure.
and innocence of the child medium. I mean, how brilliant is that? Coming
Yeah.
up with those names
Oh,
and it being very real to you, but not, and yeah, it's just fascinating the way it all unfolds and comes together. I love
yeah,
that so
yeah.
much. So
But
you've
I tell,
worked and lived with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, haven't you?
yeah,
Has
yeah.
that, living experience, living amongst it, has that influenced your spiritual practice? Do you think it's enriched it or?
Oh, look, absolutely. I think, yeah, oh gosh, I think growing up in PNG and being able to understand traditional ways, like it's right
Yes.
there, it was right in your face, and to be able to go out and live in communities as a teenager was, oh, how many Aussie kids can go, oh, I got to do that.
Yeah.
And then moving to Cape York and living at Weeper South, or at Napranum, and living at Cooktown and having access out to Hopevale and Guga land, and just the exposure to Lore, the clan constructs, the
Yes.
hierarchy, the respect. You see an elder, hello auntie, hello uncle. Um, like to see that level of respect, you don't see it in a lot of other communities. To understand the history and to know how the last 250 years have impacted. The media presents one thing, but to go and live, work, and play, I've learnt so much from, like I touched on earlier, my former mother-in-law teaching me a lot of
Yes.
Kala. And I still, like I always, still with my kids, there's words that come out.
Yeah.
I spoke Papua New Guinean Pidgin, so the transition to Torres Strait Creole wasn't hard to pick up. There was
It's so amazing,
of
Cath.
crossover. Um, I remember going to a place called Coloured Sands up north of Hopevale with one of the elders. It was sacred women's business, and to sit with the aunties, and I think that was one of my first experiences in that space. But even back then, another memory unlocked. I was a safe space for a lot of the sister girls. There was a bit of let's say violence in the community, and quite a few sister girls came to me because I was that safe space even back then. Um,
No surprises there.
I don't
Yeah.
I forgot about that, like
There
little
you go.
memories that come in. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I always didn't like, I've always thought I haven't had roots. I don't have roots. Where are
Yeah.
my roots? I moved from Melbourne to PNG to a year in boarding school, up to Cairns, Cape York, Brisbane, um, um, Canberra, Melbourne, Canberra. There was a bit in Adelaide at one
You've
point.
been everywhere, my love.
Yeah, and I had no roots, but then
Yeah.
my superpower, besides the firearms thing,
Yeah.
is I can feel where where the vibration changes on country. So it's like where those the country boundaries change. So if there's that meeting, like if you look at the IATSIS map,
Yes.
and it's like, if you blindfold me and drop me somewhere I've been before, I can tell you where I am based on that feeling, the
You can
vibration, the
sense it.
smell.
You can
Yeah.
sense the vibration.
Yeah.
Um, does different country have a different
Yeah.
like song or
Um, I don't necessarily hear it in a song, but I know what you mean. Like, because you've
yeah,
got so many different countries. We've got, God, I think there's 2,500
there's
languages.
so many. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but the practice, it's interesting. I have for a long, long time always made sure I knew whose country I was on. And I guess that goes
Yes.
way back 30 plus years. And always learn a little bit about it. But when I travel, in my mind, I always just say, ancestors, permission to come on, permission to come aboard, permission to come on your country. I promise
Yeah.
to care for country culture and people. And
Yes.
as I leave that country, I always thank them for
Yes.
safe passage, or allowing me safe. And some of the
Abs-
experience I've had, Louise, my best friend Louise, she's been with me a few times when that's happened, and
yes.
sometimes it's just been really overwhelming, and the goosebumps and the
Yes.
tears, and I think I realized I have roots. I lay them wherever I
You've
go.
got really beautiful roots that are kind of just so deep in that beautiful sacred country. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
connect wherever I
wonderful.
go. I connect
Yeah.
because of that
I love
respect.
that you sense it. I
Yeah.
love that you can
Oh,
sense the different
when I
vibration.
realized it,
That's so great.
when I realized it, we were driving across the Hay Plain, and it was just as we were about to hit Mati Mati country.
Yeah.
And the sunset, and the emus, and I'm just like, oh my God. It was so emotional. And just that feeling to know that I was coming from one country to the next. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this feeling. I've felt this before. And once I became aware of it, whenever I do the drive anywhere, I'm like, I wait for that feeling, and I know it's there. So, look, and I guess I just want to add into this while we're talking about indigeneity. So much of what we do in our spiritual practice, much
Yes.
of modern spiritual / healing medicine,
Yes. It's come from
has a
somewhere.
foundation in Indigenous practice,
Exactly.
whether it's spirit connection, healing,
It
energetics,
could be
care for
Celtic
country.
shamanism. It could be,
Yeah,
yeah.
it bringing in nature's elements, and
Yes.
understanding ancient practices and the history
Yes.
around them,
Yeah.
rather and acknowledging and respecting that, rather than just cherry picking and monopolizing and chucking something in without any real credit to
Yeah.
the
Thank you for
origin.
sharing that.
And look,
Yeah.
this does explode a whole other ethics conversation.
Yes, that's a whole new
Right.
podcast.
But when we acknowledge and we go, yep, this is where this came from. It's like the chakra work. It just seems to get chucked in everywhere. But when we look at the history, 5,000 years, it was written in the Vedas. And there's
Yes.
so much history to learn. And there's so much more than, oh, gotta, give you a chakra balance.
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility to respect that ancient practice as
Thank you so
well.
much for sharing that. I
Yeah.
know even with my writing, I love to give diversity a platform, but at the same time, and I do my very best to do it in a way where I'm acknowledging all the different cultures and I don't always get it right, but my intention is my intention is good. I do my very best to acknowledge that. I want to switch it up a gear, or not up a gear, let's just shift it to understanding the healing process. And you touched on the importance of creating safe and sacred spaces. Can you elaborate on how this concept plays a role in your healing work? So,
Yeah, look, I guess sharing with you where that comes from is just as
yes,
important. And
yeah,
I think for those that have, look, you can't measure two people's trauma. You just can't. For one person who has been through a life of trauma, it's their normal, whereas somebody that's had a fairly safe life and then gets hit with trauma, boom, whew.
yeah,
Oh, the one big thing with trauma is it means isolation and withdrawal. And whilst our logic self understands that we aren't actually alone in our experiences, that there are hundreds and thousands of people that have been through what we've been through, our emotional self can't fathom how anybody else could understand what we're navigating in that moment or what we're feeling. So it's aloneness and isolation and withdrawal that is what unites us all in that space. And we all feel that. And the hardest thing to do when you feel at the brink of non-existence is reaching out. And all
yes,
that internal narrative that's convincing you, gaslighting you that you're not worthy, no one will care, you don't want to burden others. And that's what stops you dead in your tracks, and it becomes this vicious circle. So I've had people show up for me at sessions that they've booked and they just don't even know what they need. They don't know. They're just chaos personified,
yes,
but that they need something. So kudos. Oh my God, celebrating you for acknowledging and turning up. And the best part of the work I do
yes,
is it's intuitive, and I feel my way through what is needed. So I can access my toolkit. I'm never let down. I'm never left wondering. I
yeah,
don't know, spirit, goddess, the divine ancestors,
exactly.
who or whatever it is that guides me. But that,
Divinely guided, yeah,
yep, divine innate wisdom, always accessible, and it flows without, like the dam wall breaks, and it will always flow in what healing is needed. And I think going back to these remarkable experiences I've had myself and
yes,
evolving those experiences from trauma into healing opportunities, my whole experience is that perfect palette to draw from to help others. And,
yes,
and I've been told time and time again that sharing my stories, my journey, and I mean, we've all seen Cath cry on camera. It offers people comfort and inspiration to share
yeah,
their own stories, knowing that also they can come and access the space with me to let it out, or let it go, that I'm that person. And look, I guess I'm still dancing to the beat of my own drum. I've done things my way. I
yes,
thought I was very, very weird, and I embrace it. Um, Going from devastating loneliness, the bullying, the violence, there's that lack of self-worth and confidence,
yeah,
but using all of that to fuel my determination, and I get
yes,
a little bit stubborn, to survive, succeed, and soar. And I never want people to feel alone, or the loneliness that I felt in my life, and questioning their place in the world. And
oh, Kath, yeah,
there's
exactly.
There's an Aussie hip hop artist. His name is Pez. He's a guy in Melbourne. He's just beautiful, and he sings a song called Heavenly. And there's a line, and it says, "We all need somewhere to go, and everybody needs a place to
Oh,
go."
that
And
hit my heart. You're
yeah,
gonna have me. I'm gonna
yeah,
cry now.
we don't need
Yeah.
to fit in. I will keep
Yeah.
dancing to the beat of my own drum, but
Exactly.
we need to belong somewhere. And
Right.
you know what? At
Good
the end of the
point.
day, it's our differences that are our superpowers.
Yes.
So yeah, I can't really pinpoint an answer for that because I go where I have to go and I just trust that I have the tools that will take me to help open up what my people need. And oh God, some of the results I've seen there just blow me away to get those calls or those messages
Yeah.
from people to say, oh my gosh, this happened. And to have played a part in helping that person just break through.
Yes.
It's what the journey was worth it to help
Yeah. Just I love the way you said you even kind of, congratulate yourself for being here. You've reached out. This is the first step.
yeah,
Really, really beautiful. And I think too, because you're so real, you give them the permission to be real as well. And it's a very non-judgmental space. And because you've had that lived experience too, it's just, yeah, it takes it to a whole different level, I feel. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Can you explain to the listeners what a death walker is
yeah.
and how you integrate that into your spiritual business?
Yes.
Because I know the listeners are going to be fascinated with that. So if you could share that, Cath, that would be
Look,
great.
I'm sure there are people out there that have a different interpretation, but having gone on the death doula journey, and look, recommend everybody does it. Um, Death doula doesn't sit right with me, like in terms of the title, but I thought in the sense of being a medium and
Yes.
believing wholeheartedly in the spirit world, and
Yes.
that there is this part of us that continues on once we pass, and the
Yeah.
love and healing that I've witnessed from connecting to their loved ones in spirit,
Yes.
and that's the gift, the love and the healing.
It is
um
the love and the healing that is the gift. We
yeah,
all get so hung up on the link, the
yeah,
evidence, the
yeah,
validations, and all of that's important, of course. But in my experience too, it's that that deep healing that's
yeah.
that's super special.
And I think when we understand, like, I don't have all the answers, it's just the world according to Cat,
Oh
I
yeah.
can explain, but I think when
That
we
ever
have that
evolving learning journey, we're all on it, right?
100%, I think when we have that, ability, or we get to see the spirit world and how those connections work, we view death a little bit different, and
Yeah,
I
we do.
do, and don't get me wrong, my emotional self gets the better of me through the loss of my own loved ones,
Yeah.
and for those that have sat in the audience, for me, when I've done audience readings, they can testify to me tearing up on platform when I'm connecting to their loved ones. I'm very
Yes.
emotional. Um, but
I've often done that too. And I
yeah,
remember doing a mediumship course with this international mediumship teacher, and he said he was saying, "Oh, about the crying. Don't be crying; it's unnecessary." And I'm thinking, I'm not doing it for
no, that's it. Sometimes
for showmanship. I'm doing it because I'm connecting on that really
emotional level.
heartfelt. Yeah,
Yeah. And when you embody that emotion, they are feeling it with you.
yeah,
But when you, I guess having that understanding of, I guess, the spirit world, and yeah, like it doesn't always make navigating the death process easier, but I guess it because it is as complex as it is emotional, but
yeah.
having the experience as a death doula, but because I like to call it a death walker, because there is that mediumship aspect and connecting to the
Yes.
spirit world, but
Oh, I love
also,
that so much. That makes more sense for me too. Yeah.
yeah, being able to help the dying and their loved ones to navigate, to find services, to articulate their needs, to find space. The
Yes.
interest, look, everybody wants to be the one that was there in the end that held the
Oh,
hand.
I
And
know.
kudos and gratitude, it's a absolute honor
Yeah,
and
it
privilege
is. It's a privilege. Yeah.
to be there. But sometimes in those last moments, because there is that peak of energy,
Yeah.
sometimes they just need a little bit of space to come to terms with what's happening, because the dying know that they're dying.
Yeah.
Um, so being able to be the conduit between family, the
Yes.
dying, the medical services, but also that honor to sit with someone in their transition. And I lost a very one of my dearest friends in October last year. The black dog. And when I walked in the room, I knew her soul had gone, and
Yeah.
there was no vibration there, or there was no energetic connection, and
Yeah.
I just knew, and I really felt like just for the next 24 hours, I just sat with her body. It was just that
Mm.
vessel. Um, and it was, and even though you're hearing the doctors and they're saying all their things and they want to make things hopeful, I knew she wasn't there. And but it was still an honor and a privilege for me to just sit there with her body.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's look, it's a big thing, and I know the
It is a
feels
huge
get me,
thing.
and I take
And yeah, but in some ways, it can be a beautiful experience as
yeah,
well. And to
yeah,
create a space that is more nurturing, less clinical.
yeah, and that's it.
Um,
I like to think of it as being the party planner for death. And
yeah,
die your way. Die your way. 'Cause
exactly.
everybody's gonna it's almost like having a baby or having a wedding. Everybody's
Yes.
got their 2 cents worth,
You
but
know, and we've all got, you know, even if you play music and, you know, whatever music that is, you know, whatever resonates with the person that, you know, is passing, I think
yeah.
there's certain things you can do that help the transition of the spirit
Oh,
too.
100%. And
Yeah.
life goes by so quickly.
Yes.
Learning to appreciate the moment, not getting hung up on the little things, especially
That's it.
in this
I mean, of
journey.
course, it's traumatic and it's sad, and you know, there's a lot of emotion in the room, but there is something really beautiful about holding
Yeah.
space
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the
And I
spirit that's
think the
passing. Yeah,
I think the inspiration for me in that space was when my granny passed away, and she was at Clare Holland House here in Canberra, God's waiting room. If you're ever going to die in Canberra, Clare Holland House is amazing.
yes,
And we were all in the room, and it was just, yeah, it was one of those key experiences where I thought, I wish everybody's passing. There was a quote that I read. I hope death is like, um, but getting up and leaving to the next room, but you can still hear all of the
yes.
conversation. It's something like that. I didn't get that
So
quite
beautiful. I
right,
love
but
that.
yeah, it was really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
So, mental health is a really significant part of your advocacy.
Yes.
So, how do you approach the mind body soul connection in your healing sessions? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I love everything you do with such depth. You know, it's not
Yeah.
light and fluffy, you know.
Look,
I know, I have noticed about you that you treat everything um, with the seriousness that it deserves, if that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, look, I'm the biggest joker, and my sense of humor is my trauma response is my inappropriate sense of humor at the best of times. But I think mental health is one of those things that when we're sick physically,
Yeah.
and someone says go to the doctor, we go to the doctor. But the mental health stigma that's still around on a lot of levels, people hide it, and my own mental health has been a shambles all too often. And uh look, all the way to the darkness.
Yes.
And yeah, yeah, like I mentioned, losing my dear Kerry to the black dog. I think for me, keeping that slither of hope is what kept me going. And I'd never tell someone not to get counseling or
Yeah.
that kind of speaking based or the Freudian style therapy, but
Yeah.
not everybody wants to talk about what they've been through. And particularly people with PTSD, complex PTSD, and I'm not a psychologist. And I'd always say, you keep doing what works for you, but sometimes people need that permission to go, but that's not working for me. It
Yes.
didn't work for me. I don't want to sit there and talk about all the crap things that happened, because particularly for people with PTSD, it's a reenactment, not a
Yes,
memory.
you'd be reliving it the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the modalities that I've studied, and drawing on things like body talk and
Yeah.
my shamanic practice, and even the chakra stuff, everything encompasses a mind, body, spirit aspect.
Yeah.
And finding, and yes, sometimes you got to work on them individually, absolutely. But looking at someone's current situation
Yeah.
energetically, where are their emotions? Are they waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and ticking over and not being able to get to sleep? Is there ancestral trauma there, or
Yeah.
other lives? Do we need to tap into
Yeah.
the life work? So
That multi-dimensional approach, as
yeah,
opposed to um, not, that physical approach or even the mental approach. It's more multifaceted than
yeah,
that.
yeah,
When you
absolutely.
start to look at ancestral lineages and all of that, and
Oh, and it never ceases to amaze me what comes out, and all of that.
past lives.
Yeah, I remember hearing Prakesh. He used to work out at the Hierophant, and he was a life path practitioner. Anyway, that concept made so much sense in that whole looking at things holistically, and that's steeped in Indigenous practice, particularly Native American. We look at the birth, your life birth order. We look at where you sit in the generational construct. We look at what physical ailments you have. We look at what your mentally, your connection with spirit. We look at, you're the firstborn son, therefore your father is that direct connection. What did your father go through? Never did I realize I'd see that exact thing play out in my eldest son and see life birth order in front of my very eyes. So yeah, being able to, and again, I follow things with that beautiful sense of intuition and go where I need to. But
Yes.
yeah, but also we can look at the physical of it, and we know that gut health and mental health are so
Well,
intrinsically
yeah,
linked. And if you're
exactly.
eating really bad, I know myself, if I eat badly, if your
Yeah.
iron levels are down and
I
all,
had a conversation with someone about that today, actually. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a session with me can tap into any or all of these things, but
Yes.
the
It's
intuition's always
instinctive, it's
gonna, yeah,
intuitive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Energy
Yeah.
doesn't lie, and your intuition or your instinct is always
I
bang on.
love that so
So
much.
yeah.
So, the other thing I've noticed about you is that you have this ability to bring community together and discovering the power of sharing.
Yes.
And I've seen you empower others, connect others, bring people together. You truly are that leader of light. And yeah, so sharing, even sharing skills and experiences and all of that. So do you want to sort of touch on how that plays out for you?
Yeah. Look, I love that so many of my intuitive development students have gone on to practice in their own right.
Yeah.
And you know this as a teacher and a
Yes.
mentor, when you see your those people that have come under your tutelage and they spread their wings and
Oh, it's
soar.
so exciting. I just love it so much. It's like
Yeah.
you're like a proud mama, aren't you?
Oh,
It's like, yeah,
absolutely.
you're
And look, I
doing it.
could probably
And
pluck
you're
from
doing it in your own way too,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things I always teach, finding what works. There's enough to go around, and look, someone woke up one morning and went, this is how we're going to do it. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not brain surgery where it's got to be done a certain way.
Yeah.
Finding your way in it is always going to be different to someone else. And look, I have plethora plethora of people to
A
pick from. But
plethora.
I think the one person I know I do have permission to talk about, and she'd be a little bit chuffed, but my bestie, my witchy woo boo Louise, and you know Louise.
I absolutely adore Louise, and I
Yeah.
adore your friendship. It's
Oh,
just
look,
so beautiful to witness.
to watch her blossom, and she practiced her craft in secret for a long, long time. And
Yes.
her self-doubt, the fear of judgment, rejection dysmorphia. We met around I think 3 or 4 years ago, and like we really hit it off. And we'd both been burnt by women friendships, so we were a bit hesitant. But the importance of each other to each other became really apparent really quickly. And going on a journey with her, and part of that being helping through her healing journey, I was able to understand, and God, so many synchronicities. We often say same soul, two bodies. I understand her hows and whys, and um, as that sisterhood, our friendship deepened. I actually said to Louise one day, "I love you. I will do anything for you, but I can't do this. Here's Lisa's number, Lisa from Artemisia. You need
Yes.
to go and have body talk with Lisa." And
Yes.
look, that said, she's been an amazing guinea pig for me every time I come up with a new idea. And she's been my right-hand woman through all of my workshops. And to witness her blossom in confidence, like I
Oh,
got to
I've
see,
seen it.
yeah, to see her
Yes.
finally connect with tarot, to actually stand up and demonstrate
It's so
mediumship.
great, Cath. Yeah.
She's even teaching tasseomancy, the tea leaf reading, in my
Oh, is
intuitive
she?
development weekender. Yeah.
Is that right?
Her own witchy business is exploding. She's owning it. She's out and
I
proud with
love
her
that she's
spell
owning
work.
it and it's so
Yeah,
authentic and true to
yeah,
her.
yeah.
And she does it so beautifully. She's so
Oh,
creative.
absolutely.
She's
And
so
she
magical.
watch this space, because she's going to step out and start teaching some
Yeah.
methodology of
I
spell
love
work.
that so
So
much.
to see her come into her own is such an honor. And look, I've seen her navigate the sadness and the grief,
Yeah.
isolation and the anger, and to see her, this glowing powerhouse who speaks her truth.
Yeah.
I'm proud, and I love to say that I've played a part in this. So
Yes.
yeah, and it's, look, the fact that she now shares, and when something's not right, and she trusts her intuition, and that's, I guess, what I love seeing, and helping people
It's
switch
true
that on.
sisterhood.
What's
Yeah.
going to work for you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
taking, you know what, I can give you this, but go make it your own and do
Yeah.
what you need to.
It's so great.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, challenging each other, supporting each other, yeah, having fun together. I see
yeah.
you two having lots of fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I think that's important too,
Yeah,
right? Having some fun.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, always. I
Yeah.
think he's on our way here now, because we're going out to a full moon thing tonight.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So just quickly before we finish up, you have
Yeah.
the most interesting hobbies.
Yeah.
Pistol shooting,
Yeah.
champion. Yeah, I just find it really fascinating. To me, yeah, you like that warrior energy, I just love it so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, do people often ask you about that when
Look, yes, they always have. I hung my holsters up in November last year.
yeah,
Long time, 20 years, trainer, participant, regulator. Target shooting's like meditation.
yes.
Safety, stance, grip, sights, target, breathe, trigger, breathe, squeeze, and it becomes this mantra.
Oh my
And
goodness, it
all of
sounds like deep
meditation,
breath work.
yep, all of the crap out there
It's
doesn't
so
matter.
Artemis,
Yep,
the eye on the prize, target,
yep,
focus.
yep.
Yeah, love it
And look,
so much.
I guess for me, it's again that control in the chaos.
Yeah,
As a survivor of firearms violence, I kind of fell into the firearms regulator space. But for me, I had control and that hypervigilance. I
yes.
am hypervigilant by nature. Oh, well, conditioned. But that was that space of control and mind silence. So it was my mental health reset.
So it was
The
actually quite
irony,
transformative for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The irony
Like
is,
really empowering
oh,
because,
100%, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah. The irony is that to have a firearms license, you've got to do mental health checks. And do you suffer
yes,
anxiety, depression, etc.? And it's even
interesting.
more ironic than most people probably tick the no box because of the stigma attached to those two words, mental health.
Yes.
And it captures such a broad spectrum. So look, for me, it was so incredibly empowering having survived what I survived with firearms previously from a former partner. And there was some deep trauma to overcome there. I built a career out of firearms, and it was good to me. And yeah, I
On
I
so
wanted,
many levels, like not just the sport, because it is a sport
yeah.
and it's an incredible sport,
Well, it was,
but also just that, as you said, controlling your environment, feeling empowered, feeling
yeah,
powerful,
yeah.
getting reclaiming your power, right?
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think being able to do what I did in the career sense, in the regulation sense, but also winning a bunch of medals. And I made some lifelong friends along the way. It took me, from customs to Victoria Police to an advisor in Parliament. So,
Wow.
uh, yeah, had
You're
some
a fascinating woman, Kath.
big things there.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So before we finish up, what message would you like to leave with our listeners, especially for those that are on that kind of healing, learning journey,
Yeah.
transformational journey? Have you got any kind
Look,
of
I think
messages?
there's a lot of gatekeeping, and there's a lot of what I call Mandalorianing. This is the way. No, it's not. Someone woke up one morning and said, this is the way. It's human nature to practice something in the way we've been taught it, but in this beautiful plethora of spirituality
Oh my
modalities, and
goodness, I love that so much. Yep.
we can do whatever we want. My philosophy is leave people better than you found them. Honestly, whatever we do, we find our way. If something, you may be taught something and it doesn't sit right with you, don't do it. Find your
That's
way.
it.
Your terms of reference, your frame of experience is going to be different to the next person. There's enough to go around. Sometimes the healing for you isn't about treatment, but perhaps it's in the learning. Go and do a workshop, meet other people, learn
Yes.
the hows and whys behind what
Be
you
inquisitive, be
experience.
curious,
Yeah.
find your pathway because all
Find
those pathways lead to the same place.
and find
But
your
the
people.
pathway has to resonate with you.
Yeah.
It's far more powerful
Yep.
if it resonates with you. Yeah.
Yep. Find your people.
Makes sense. Find
And
your
you're not and
people.
and you're not doing it wrong. Do it. Trust your intuition. Well, figure out which of your clairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast. But
Yes.
yeah, you do you, boo, because there is enough to go around, and it's we're collaborating now. We're not competing. We're looking after each other. We're uplifting each other, and we're shining each other's spotlights for each other, with each other, and blooming together to be even brighter. Some
Beautiful,
people
wise
haven't
words.
some people
Beautiful,
haven't
wise words.
some
Yeah.
people haven't
I
quite
love it.
caught up to that yet, but
That's right. And it's, and because we're on this ever evolving journey, there's even, people come and they go, and that's okay. Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
And that's
And like
okay.
we've got about 50 other questions to answer, but gosh, we had,
Well,
had a
you know
lot to
what?
get
It's another
through.
podcast. I'll
Love
have to
it.
get you back without a doubt.
Let's
You're
do it.
definitely coming back.
Oh, we should do a
So
live one of that too.
how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work? Now I know you've got your website and you're
Yes.
on Facebook and
Yeah.
Instagram. I've even seen that you're on TikTok. I just absolutely love your lives. They're amazing. So people need to check those out as well.
So I'll just say to you before I went, those tarot daily carpools, they started as my mental health to save me from not being here anymore. And yeah, I just needed to pick something
Well,
so
thank you
that
for
I could
sharing that with
focus on.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did. And look, within weeks, I had people reaching out saying, thank you. I saw your video. You got me out of bed today. There were some days that I was in a U shape crying, and I'd get out and I'd film my 3 minutes of tarot and go back to bed. And here I am nearly 2 years later, still filming them and still hearing from people all over the world, to the point that one lady said, I've always wanted to be a barber. Your tarot reading, like my 3 minute card pull, kicked my butt. I've signed up, and 6 months later she messaged me. She said, can you send me photos of your hair? I want to do your haircut as my final assessment next
I love
week.
your hair. Yeah.
And she did.
Your
And
hair
she
inspired a couple of my oracle cards. So I've got the Moon Temple Oracle deck coming out in October.
Can't wait.
And
I
there's the
pre-ordered.
most magnificent lunar goddess that has your haircut.
Oh, stop. I can't wait. I've ordered 2, one for me and one for Louise.
Have you?
Yes.
And you inspire me every day with those messages. And, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and, you know, I find them very inspiring, very real, very authentic, very supportive, often very relevant, by the way, very relevant.
I have to say thank you for being one of my biggest cheerleaders, because you have been for so long. And doing your Seven Sisters Sacred Leadership back a few years ago, and that half an hour session we had that turned into an hour, surprise, surprise, what we talked about and how that formed such a foundation in some of my practices as well. But also, I love when you mention the word spiritual academic, because it made so much sense for me, because I always learn and I get all of this knowledge, and whilst I don't exactly practice that as it's taught, there's nuggets in it that I take, and you're like, you know, spiritual academic, and I'm like, oh my God, that makes sense, and there's nothing wrong with it. And but
just do you, just be you, and find those beautiful parts that make sense to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
And the inspiration that
love
you
that.
are. And
thank you, my love.
But thank you for just always being there, cheering me on, my beautiful.
Thank you, my love. I really appreciate that.
Fairy Queen.
Love and adore you. Love and adore just witnessing your magnificent journey. And I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been so wonderful, so deep, so real, so inspiring, so full of wisdom. You're amazing. Thank you so much. And you're definitely coming back whether you like it or not.
We'll talk about proper spiritual stuff. It was all trauma dumping today.
But, you know, within that, though, you wove in all those beautiful, amazing things that you do to be of service to spirit and the community and all of that. So all very relevant. Yeah.
Thank you, my gorgeous.
Thank you, my lovely.
All right.
Take care.
Talk soon.